morning. Namaste. Friends, this is the new batch for CA Final Indirect Tax Pure English Recording. Friends, again I am speaking. This is a full course batch, not a fast track batch. We are going to cover each and every topic in detail, in depth, covering each and every concept with its practical application. Before beginning the batch, friends, let me clarify one thing that I have assumed that you don't know anything about indirect tax. We have to cover right from the scratch and we have to reach till the top. Friends, to be a good consultant, to score great marks in indirect tax, it's a very scoring subject if you understand the concept. We have to read each and every topic right from the scratch till top with all the concepts and all practical examples. Joining the batch, joining the topics with the live market. Friends, indirect tax. Indirect tax, first point which I have said that I have assumed that we are reading it for the first time. You have not heard the word indirect tax at all from the beginning. Friends, even I have assumed that in intermediate or IPCC or in offices, you have not seen indirect tax anywhere, or whatever you have done the work or whatever you have read till now, you don't remember even a single section. Okay, so we have to cover each and every topic in detail with all the concepts. Friends, indirect tax. First of all, first of all, let me clarify one more thing. We will discuss everything here. Friends, there will be many questions which I'll be asking you all guys, and in the video class, you have to think, you have to give me the answer. Okay, by saying that we are sitting one to one. Okay, Sarkar. Now point comes, what do you mean by indirect tax? Right from the beginning, we have to begin, and yes, we are beginning the indirect tax. Okay, the first question which comes in my mind is, what is indirect tax? What is indirect tax? How it works? So, friends, first point is, what is indirect tax? Yes, Sarkar. Indirect tax. What do you mean by indirect tax? A tax which is charged from the end consumer but collected by the government from somebody else. It means the person who is ultimately bearing the burden of the tax is not directly paying to the government. The government is collecting the tax from somebody else, and ultimately that person is collecting from the end consumer. For example, this pen which I have purchased say for rupees 100, and I have paid GST 18% on this. I have paid total 118 to the supplier, and supplier who have collected rupees 18 as GST from me have paid this tax to the government. So ultimately GST is collected by government. Ultimately it is paid by, ultimately it is borne by the consumer, but yes, it is paid by somebody else. It means government is collecting the tax and consumer is paying the tax, but that end consumer is not paying directly to the government. Government is collecting the tax through some intermediary who are suppliers of those goods or services. They are collecting from the end consumer and paying to the government. So ultimately government is receiving the tax, but not directly from the end consumer. They are collecting it indirectly. That's why it is called indirect tax. Okay, sir, what do you mean by direct tax? What do you mean by direct tax? A tax which is collected directly by the government from the person who is bearing the tax. The person who borne the burden of the tax is paying to the government. For example, income tax. You are earning the income, you will pay income tax directly to the government. So government is collecting directly the tax from the end consumer. The person who is bearing the burden of the tax is paying the tax to the government directly. That's why these are called direct tax. Okay, these are the basic differences. Friends, already I have spoken that we are reading it right from the scratch. Okay, we have to discuss each and every point. Many of these points you might be already knowing, but yes, I have to link all these points with the book. Whenever we read the book, the current market scenario are not linked with the book. That's what I have to do here, and we have to connect each and everything, each and every point which you understand, which you know very well, with the book while reading the entire subject. Friends, okay, whether it's direct text or indirect text, first of all, let me understand from you that what do you mean text? What do you mean by text, whether it's direct text or indirect text? First of all, the point comes, what do you mean by tax? Sir, taxes are the, yes, speak to yourself. I am sitting with you one on one. Please, taxes are the revenue of the government. Very good. Friends, whatever point we are discussing here, whatever question I am asking you, I need a very basic answer of that. I don't need any technical answer, and I don't need any book answer. I need very general answer. Okay, as a common man, as a layman. Okay, so taxes are the revenue of the government. I will convert these general answers into technical points. It's my job. But yes, you have to discuss me very smoothly and as a layman. Okay, sir, taxes are the revenue of the government. Okay. Now my point comes. What do you mean by government? Who is the government? Sir, taxes are collected by the government. Taxes are the revenue of the government. Whether it's direct tax, indirect tax, it's of other concern. But yes, point is that taxes are the revenue of the government. My point is that who is the government? Who runs the country? Who is the government? Modi Sarkar. Aapki baar, Modi Sarkar. Like this. Who is government? Congress, BJP, or what? Who is the government? Sir, we all are the government. You are the government. Indian economy, the country India is a democratic country. Yes. Who is the government? For the people, by the people, of the people. So who is the government? We all are the government. Around 130 crore public of the country are the government. It means BJP, Congress, or any other leader is our representative. They are not the government. We all are the government. Yes, friends. Okay. Sir, who is the government? Tell me again. We all are the government. If we are the government, then how we will work? How we will run the country? Just now you have said that government is running the country. Who runs the country is the government. How we will run the government? How we will run the country? Sir, this is the point. Now let's discuss about all these points. Friends, I know that all these points you might be knowing, but yes, we have to link each and every word which you know with the concept of the book, with the concept of the subject indirect text. Please explain all these points. Please understand all these points. Friends, what do you mean by democracy? For the people, by the people, of the people. It means who will run the country? We will run the country. But how we will run the country? It means if we are the government, then all the act, all the rules, all the laws are made by we all guys. Yes, believe me. But how? How we will make all these rules? Sir, around 130 crore public, how will they run the country? So we have find out a solution for that. What we will do? Elections. Yes. What we will do? We will elect people who will represent us from the entire country. Different location, we will elect one person. Neta log, politicians. For example, Mumbai Andheri, member of parliament. The person who is the member of parliament from Mumbai Andheri will represent the people of Andheri location. What we have done? We have elected a person who will represent us, who are well educated, well mannered, Don't laugh at yourself. Sir, well-mannered, well-educated people we have elected, and ultimately from the entire country, different location of the country, each and every part of the country, we have elected, from each and every part of the country we have elected a representative which is called member of parliament, and ultimately they formed parliament. Yes. So if I talk about central government, then we have formed parliament. Now what is the parliament? Parliament, all the members of the parliament are the representative the public of the country from entire country, different parts of the country. Now what will they do? They will represent us. And if all the members of parliament are present, it means entire country. It means if any session of parliament is running, it means we all are sitting there, we all are taking decision for ourselves, because democracy means for the people, by the people, and of the people. Now it means who is government? We all are the government. We means parliament, because we all are being represented by way of parliament members. So government, who is the government? We all are the government. We all are means parliament. It means all the powers of the government. Look at here. All the powers of the government are parliamentary power. It means, it means who will run the country? Parliament will run the country. Government means we means parliament. It means all the laws of the country, all the act of the country, whatever we see will be formed by the parliament. It means all the powers of the government are parliamentary power. Now who will amend the laws? Parliament. Who will bring the new law? Parliament. Who will change the law? Parliament. Who will delete the existing laws which are not relevant? Parliament. Who will bring the new law? Parliament. Whatever will be done by, will be is required to be done, will be done by the parliament. It means who will run the country? Parliament. Parliament means we all. Yes. Okay. Now my next point comes. If any amendment is required in any of the law, then who will make the amendment? Government. Government means parliament. Okay. Now one more point comes to my mind. Friends, does session of the parliament runs 365 days in a year? Are they sitting in the parliament? Members of the parliament, do they sit in the parliament in the throughout the country, throughout the year in the country? No. Then there are sessions of the parliament. There are sessions of the parliament. And yes, the sessions of the parliament, when they run, they take decisions about the country. Now point comes, for example, today is say 1st of December 2020. If today is 1st of December, say on 15th of November, a parliamentary session got over. On an average, between two parliamentary sessions, there is a gap of around 2 to 2.5 months. In two parliamentary sessions, there is a gap of around 2 months. It is decided by the parliament. But yes, point is that a parliamentary session which got closed on 15th of November, now today it's 1st of December. Now next session will be held at around the gap of 2 more months. Now what will be the situation? Look at this. For example, today in Mumbai, suppose there are heavy rains, cyclone, there are some natural calamities, heavy rains in Mumbai. Everywhere there is waterlogging. Everywhere it's waterlogging is there everywhere, every part of the Mumbai. Everywhere it's raining so heavily, continuously from hours and hours. Now, you know, sugar, more than 90% of the sugar of the entire country is stored in Mumbai. Do you know this? No, no. I know very well. If you don't know, then I know very well everything. Yeah. Suppose more than 90% sugar of the country is stored in the Mumbai city, and everywhere there is heavy rain and water logging is there. So what will be the scenario? All sugar got destroyed in that natural calamity. Now what will happen? More than 90% of the sugar of the country got destroyed. Now what will happen? Demand of sugar, goods like sugar is in demand every day. That's a good of basic necessity. Every day we all need the sugar. Now demand is constant, but supply suddenly very down. What will happen? Yes, demand is constant, supply is very less. What will happen? Definitely prices will rise. And if the prices of the goods like sugar get boosted up, then think about the inflationary rate. Think about the inflation rate, it will be very high. What will happen to the economy? Now, what will be the plan of action by the government? Think about it. What should we do? Modi ji will say to the farmers, I need sugar. Please go to your farms. And next day, I need sugar. क्या आप कर पाएंगे? Will you be able to do? All the farmers, आपको करना ही है. क्या वो? Will the farmers produce the sugar by the night itself? No, not possible. It's an agricultural produce, boss. Sugarcane is an agricultural produce. Farmers will do farming, no doubt. But it will take time to produce sugarcane. Sugarcane will come. It will go to the factory, will process, and then sugar will come. Till that time, sugar free. So, the production of the country will take time, and stock in the country is only 10% of the required demand. What will happen? Now, what government should do? India's entire sugar is over. Production will take time. So now at this moment, to fulfill the demand, what should government do? Yes, you are thinking right way. What should government do to fulfill the demand as of now? India country's entire sugar is over. Now what should the government do? Yes, they will have to import the sugar immediately. So at that particular moment, they will have to promote the import of sugar to stop the inflationary rate, to match the supply with the demand. Yes, now what should the government do to import the sugar, to promote the import of sugar? Should they boost up the rate of customs on import of goods? Custom duty is charged. Should they boost up the rate of customs, or should, to promote that, they should reduce the customs? Yes, they will reduce the custom, or they will exempt the custom duty on sugars. Now to exempt the custom duty on sugar, or to reduce the rate of custom duty on sugar, what they will have to do? They will have to make the amendment in the law. Yes, government will have to amend the law of the customs law. Now, to amend the law, government need the authority. And who can amend the law? Just now we have discussed who can amend the law. Only parliament, because parliamentary powers. Sir, just now we have discussed who have made the law? Parliament. Who can amend the law? Parliament. Now, to exempt the customs duty on sugar, if parliament can do this, then we will need the session of the parliament. 15 days back only, parliamentary session got over. Now, it will happen after next around 2 months. Till then, sugar free. Inflation out. What government should do? Yes, they can't call the parliament immediately. All the members of parliament are so busy in corruption. Sorry, they are not busy in corruption, but yeah, only 5 years they have to make the corruption to do their work. Yes, only 5 year time they have got. They are busy in their own job. They are busy in making the plan for the development of their own of the country. Yeah, development of the country. So government can't call parliamentary session by the night itself. It will take time. Next session will come after around 2 months. Now what should the government do as of now? That's why we all, while framing the law, have given some power to the government. We have delegated some powers to the government to issue the notifications. Yes. So we have delegated some powers to the government which are called delegated powers. Yes. We have made section number 25 in the Customs Act. We have made section number 11 in the GST Act, CGST Act, SGST Act. We have made section number 25 in the Customs Act, which says government has power to grant exemption from custom duty to any of the goods if they think that situations are like this. Yes, you might have also read many acts, many laws you have read where you must have read the sections in which it is written that government has power, board has power, CBIC has power, CBDT has power. These powers are given by we all guys. Yes, while framing the act, we have given the power to the government कि without sanction of parliament, you can enact the law. You can implement the law. Yes, but not all the powers. We have given few powers to the government so that in such situations of emergency, every time they do not need the parliament, directly they can amend the law by issue of a notification or order. Yes, that's why. That's why you might have seen that the budget, finance budget, which comes every year once in a year. Amendments in Finance Act are made only once. Amendment through Finance Act are made only once in a year. But yes, there are lots of amendments throughout the year. How they do? And after the implementation of GST, daily you might be seeing one of the notifications. How they are issuing? Through delegated power. This delegated power enables the government, gives the power to the government to issue the notification and make the amendment. Friends, why we are discussing all these points? Because in the first lecture itself, I have to make you understand what we have to read and what amendments are applicable for VL guys. Friends, I think you might have understood how the government make the amendment through Finance Act as well, plus notifications also. And to clarify the points, they also issue the circulars. So what all we have to cover? Friends, you and me will be discussing all the applicable provisions which are applicable for our exams. Now, what is the policy of ICAI? Friends, as per policy of the ICAI, if you have the exams in May 2021, then 6 months before the month of the exams, whatever amendments are made applicable are relevant for your exams. So if you are having your exams in May 2021, then all amendments which are made effective till 31st October 2020 will be relevant for your exams. And if you are having exams in November 2021, then all amendments which will be made applicable till 30th April 2020 will be 2021 sorry 2021 will be relevant for your exams. Yes friends, and the batch we are recording this is relevant for both these exams, May 21 as well as November 21. Friends, Now, what amendments will we cover in this batch? Obviously, this a batch which is being recorded in the month of December 2020. So we will be covering all the amendments which are made applicable till 31st October 2020, and the books which you will be receiving: 3 modules of the main book, conceptual book, 2 books for question book, questionnaire including multiple choice questions, including case study based MCQs, plus 1 summary module to revise the entire subject in one day. Friends, these all 6 books which you will be receiving in this batch are amended till 31st October 2021. Then the question of the students having exams in November 21 will come, sir, what about the amendments which will be applicable between these 2 dates? Friends, these 2 dates, between these 2 dates, whatever will be the amendment, I will put this all amendment on YouTube along with the amendment notes. So no need to worry. No need to worry. Every student who is having exams in May 21 as well as November 21 can watch out these videos, and yes, these lectures are applicable for both the exams May 21 as well as November 21. Only amendment lecture which is not so lengthy, and in my opinion around 5-6 hours only, around 2 lectures will be there for amendment applicable for November 21. But let's see what all amendments are made between these 2 dates. Okay, so will be uploaded on YouTube in due course of time after the obviously 30th April 2021. But yes, Sarkar, May 21 as well as November 21 students can go for these lectures. Okay, so I hope you got the entire point how amendments are made by the government, how these are made applicable to you guys in the exams. And yes, now my point comes again. Who is the government? We all are the government. We all are the government. Then, okay, we'll go reverse now. What are the taxes? What are the taxes? Taxes are the revenue of the government. Okay, who is government? Yes, we all are the government. Oh, who is paying the tax? We all are paying the tax. To whom we are paying the tax? Government. Who is government? We all are the government. Kya? It means taxes are the revenue of the government. Government means we all, and we all are paying to tax. We all are paying taxes to the government means we all itself. It means, sir, we are paying taxes to ourselves for our common development, for common infrastructure. For example, for security, we need the police, we need army. Now, we all will collect the fund through taxes. It's a kind of mutual fund. We all will mutually collect the tax from ourselves itself, and we will use this common fund for the benefit of all of us. Yes, for development of infrastructure, for administration of the country, for security, etc., etc. All these expenses from these taxes which are paid by ourselves itself. Clear? Done, friends. So taxes are a kind of mutual fund which we collect from ourselves for our common development. Yes, friends. So whether it's direct tax, it's indirect tax, these are different mediums of collection of taxes, but yes, these are paid by ourselves. Clear? So whatever laws which frame, you tell me, will the laws be illogical? Because all laws are framed by we all itself. Income Tax Act, oh, it is framed by we only. Excise Duty Act, Central Excise Act, Service Tax, now GST, earlier sales tax or value-added tax, all these taxes are framed by we only. Now you tell me, if we are framing the taxes, we are framing the laws for application on ourselves, will those laws be illogical? No, friends, that's what that's what we have to learn here. All these act, all these provisions, all these laws are logical. Each and every part, each and every section, each line, each provision, each word, each mark, whether it's comma or full stop, has got its own sense. These are not nonsense. Friends, that's what we have to understand. Friends, these are very easy if we connect these to the concept. Friends, everybody knows what it is. But once we know how it is and why it is, then definitely we'll be a consultant on something. That's what is my job, and that's what we have to discuss. So let's begin with the indirect tax. Let's begin with the concept of indirect tax. For friends, before this, have you got the entire point of concept of indirect tax? Yes. But why I have discussed all these points, let me explain you. Let me take an example. Why we have to read each topic with the reason, with the logic. Let's have an example. Friends, if an assessee pays the tax, liable to pay the tax, but he make the payment to the government of tax after the due date. It means he has delayed in making the payment of tax to the government. Then what will happen? Shoot, ऐसा उड़ा दो. Shoot at first sight like this? No. Government will collect the interest from that assessee. Now, what is interest? Interest is the time value of money. And you know what is the rate of interest? If the assessee delays in making payment of tax to the government, then you know what is the rate of interest? You know what is the rate of interest? The rate of interest which is to be paid by assessee generally in GST is 18% per annum simple interest is per number of days. Per number of days, simple interest 18% per annum. If the assessee delays in making payment to the okay, and at the same time, if you have made some excess payment to the government or some wrong tax to the government, which is refundable to you. If that amount is refundable to you all, then yes, you have made the refund application. Now, if the government delays in making refund to the assessee, then who will pay the interest? Government will pay the interest. Yes, there are provisions for interest to be paid by the government if they delays in making refund to the assessee. And you know what is the rate of interest? I am just talking generally, just discussing about these provisions. Exactly, we will read after some time at the relevant topic. But yes, just to give the idea how the provisions are made. Okay. Whenever government give the refund to the assessee, and if they delay in making refund to the assessee, now they will pay the interest. Now you know what is the rate of interest? 6% per annum. 6%. And for years, it's 18%. And for them, it's 6%. And look at the provision. If the government is liable to make you refund of any amount, then the day when you have made the application for refund, valid application for refund, from that day 60 days are allowed to the government, 60. And if they do not make payment within these 60 days, then from 61st day they are liable to pay interest at the rate of 6%. Very less. But at the same time, if you look at assessee, if the assessee delays in making payment of tax to the government by the due date, then very next day from the due date, he is liable to pay interest at 18% per. बड़ी नाइंसाफी है. Very wrong. Non-acceptable. It is very wrong. Right or not? Wrong. So what the government should do? We have told, we will discuss with the government. नहीं चलेगा, नहीं चलेगा, प्रोटेस्ट कर लेंगे, वी ऑल विल डू प्रोटेस्ट, वी ऑल विल से टू द गवर्नमेंट, डू वन थिंग, either give us rate of 6% per annum to fuel gas also, or you should also pay 18% per annum if we are paying 18%. Yes or no? Obviously. So now what will happen? Come to the next point. Okay, government said, okay, Baba, let's discuss. If the rate of interest will be 6% per annum for the assessee, what will be the scenario? Let's discuss. If the rate of interest to be paid by the assessee in case of delay in making payment of tax to the government will be 6% per annum, then what will be the scenario? Assessee will definitely make late payment. Why? He is getting working capital loan at 15%, 17% per annum from the bank or financial institution. So what he will do? For example, if one of my client need a loan of 50 lakh rupees, working capital loan of rupees 50 lakh, 5 lakh, what I will do? I'll suggest him. I'll ask him, what is the average GST which you are paying every month? For example, he says 10 lakh rupee per month. What I will say? Wait for 5 months, don't pay GST for 5 months. He will say, what? I said, yes. So what will happen? 10 lakh on an average for each month. For 5 months, it will come to 50 lakh. 50 lakh, he has not paid the tax to the government. Now what will happen? 50 lakh working capital loan is arranged to him. Now he will make the payment of tax after 5 months. He will make payment of tax of every month after the expiry of 5 months. The cycle of payment is got delayed by 5 months regarding GST payment. What is the rate of interest? 6% per annum. And if that assessee, that client would have taken the loan from the bank or any financial institution or any rich person like you, then rate of interest would have been 15%, 20%, 18%. And here from the government, by making delayed payment of GST, he is liable to pay interest only at 6% per annum. Definitely he will opt for this scheme. Yes sir, this is very beneficial. And Bobby, this rate of interest is simple rate of interest. And yes, in some month, if you need 60 lakh loan, then don't pay by one more month. It will be arranged by 10 more lakhs, 60 lakh. If you want to pay off all the loan, definitely pay it. No rescheduling charges, no security, nothing is required. And simply he will get 6% per annum simple loan. That's it. So what we decided? No, 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 no. This will be very wrong. So considering the market situations and considering the nature of the public of country, government decided ki no, 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 6% will be wrong. Definitely, now your heart says na 6% is wrong for the assessee. It should be 18% having regard to market condition, because that assessee will also get the rate 18% per annum from the market if he go for the loan from the market for business. Yes, on an average. So government said no, 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 18% is good. We all said ki okay, we agree because 6% per annum will not be viable. So 18% is fine for the assessee. Okay. So now our point will come. Okay. So do one thing. For government also, make it 18%. Instead of 6% per annum for government, for we all guys, it is 18% and 6% is not viable. Okay. Change the rate of interest to 18% if the government delays in making payment to the assessee. If the government delays in making refund to the assessee, make it 18%. Now think, what if government make the rate of interest at 18% per annum? Sir, it will be a new venture of investment in FD. Today's rate of interest is around 6% only. Government bonds around 6% only. If you make investment in FDs, etc., you will get the rate of interest at only 6% per annum only. But if you make excess payment of GST to the government, if you make excess payment of GST to the government and the government delays in making refund to you guys, you will get 18%. Then definitely a new venture, new investment opportunity for all the SSCs to make excess payment to the government and claim the refund. And whenever officer says, sir, your refund is processed, what you will say? No, I don't need refund as of now. Keep it with you, with the government. Keep it with the government. I am getting 18% interest, nowhere else. 100% secured. Sir, you tell me, is the 18% rate of interest possible? Viable? No. So what is the viable rate of interest if the government delays in making refund to the SSC? 6% as per market condition. Now you tell me, is it right or wrong? Absolutely right. For SSC, it's 18% per annum. Perfect. For department, it is 6% per annum. Perfect. Just before 5 minutes, we were thinking very wrong, not fair with the SSC. नहीं चलेगा, नहीं चलेगा. We were thinking बड़ी नाइंसाफी हो रही है. Unfair deal is being done by the government कि we are paying 18%, they are paying only 6%. It's very unfair. Friends, after just 5 minutes, after thinking about logic of this provision, now we are saying no. Perfect. For us, it is 18%. For department, it is 6%. For SSC, it is 18%. Absolutely correct. Yes, boss. This is what the difference is between accountant and chartered accountant. Friends, we have to read each and every provision. We have to read each section, each rule with their logic, with the practical implication. Clear? It will give you in-depth knowledge and maturity of the mind while reading the provision. That's what is our target. That's what we want to discuss. Friends, this is the key of success. Each and every topic we have to discuss like this. If you might have read only rate of interest 18% for SSC, 6% for SSC, so you have read only what it is. Now you have read how it is and why it is. Once you understand how it is and why it is, definitely now you don't need to remember the provision. It will automatically gets into the mind of the student, and it will give you long-term retention in mind if you read any topic with its all concept and clarity with practical application. That's what we have to do. That's what we need to understand how it is, why it is. Okay, so moving ahead, this was just an example that basic concepts are very important. Each and every topic needs a conceptual clarity. Okay, friends, moving ahead, let's begin the subject indirect tax. So, indirect tax. Friends, it is charged on goods and services. Now, what laws are applicable for our syllabus? Friends, if we talk about IDT, indirect tax laws, in our syllabus, GST laws are applicable and customs law plus FTP, foreign trade policies. Friends, out of 100 marks, paper number 8 of CA final indirect tax, whether it's new syllabus or old syllabus, contents are absolutely same because laws are absolutely obviously. Friends, for GST, our syllabus, as far as our syllabus is concerned, marks are concerned, 75 marks are allotted by ICAI for asking you, and 25 marks for customs plus foreign trade policy. This is how 100 marks are there. And yes, These entire 100 marks you need to keep it in pocket. Yes, if you learn entire topic conceptually, definitely it will be there. Friends, now to begin with, what topic we should take? Customs or GST? Yes, customs or GST? The most demanded, most popular as of now, most discussed topic, the hot topic, hot cake as of now is goods and service tax. The demand of the country is GST, goods and services tax. Yes, we will begin with the GST. Friends, but before beginning GST, again I'll discuss all the basics regarding GST, that why GST came, how it came, what it is absolutely we need to understand. Now GST laws. Friends, goods and services tax. Let's begin. Shall we begin? आवाज नहीं आ रहा है. Say yes. Shall we begin? Okay. We need to be very energetic while reading. Yes, sir. Now GST, goods and services tax, made applicable in the country from 1st of July 2017, the day, the GST day. At the same time, the Doctor's Day, because if you don't understand a chartered accountant, don't understand GST, then definitely Doctor's Day will help anybody. Sir, now point comes, goods and services tax. What was the requirement? What was the need? What was the lacuna in the previous laws? So GST came. First of all, let's discuss all those provisions, all those points which were relevant to understand why GST came. Friends, I understand that the provisions, the points which we will discuss as of now, right now, just now, you might be knowing all these points, but yes, we need to connect all those points which you know with this subject. That's why please be focused here only and please concentrate. We have to discuss each and every point in detail, concepts. Friends, all these points will be relevant to connect with the book, to connect with the provisions. Hey, friends, before GST, what was the problem? What was the problem in the previous laws? What was the lacuna in the previous laws? Friends, in case if GST was not there, then what was there? Central excise duty on manufacture of the goods. Sales tax, VAT on sale of goods. On services, it was service tax. Friends, these are some major taxes which got merged into. So what was the problem? What was the problem? What was the lacuna in the previous law? Let's discuss first that. Then we will frame the GST law and then we will move ahead for the provisions. Directly we won't read any provision because we need to frame the law. You understood how the provisions may be applicable? Then definitely you will know what is the problem. Hey, dosto, friends, what was the lacuna earlier? So let's have a look at the previous law. Friends, before GST, if a manufacturer manufactures some goods and sell those goods, then excise duty was charged. On sale of goods, VAT, sales tax was being charged. On services, service tax was being charged. Okay, so central excise was the revenue of central government, service tax was the revenue of central government, and VAT, sales tax, intrastate sale, VAT was the revenue of respective state government. Okay, so let's have an example how these provisions, laws were applicable. Let's have an example of excise only, central excise duty. Okay, say I am a manufacturer. I am a manufacturer. Okay, I am a manufacturer of this marker. Say this is a marker which I used to write on the board. Okay, Sarkar, I am a manufacturer of this marker and excise is applicable. Excise duty is applicable on this marker. Okay, now what used to happen? See, to manufacture the marker, I would have purchased inputs, input services, capital goods. Okay, many inputs. Say, for example, I have purchased plastic. Okay, have an example of this plastic input for rupees say 100. Okay, I have paid. Okay, I had purchased this input from manufacturer of the input. Okay, he would have charged excise duty on the bill. Say 10% was the excise duty. 10 total comes to 110. This is my purchase in. I have bought this, bought the inputs for rupees 110. Okay, now I will use this input to manufacture my output goods, which is marker, and the marker is also taxable goods. So whatever tax I have paid on purchases, that is rupees 10, I will be getting input tax credit, ITC. It was called Senvet credit earlier. Okay, during the excise laws. So I will avail the Senvet credit. Senvet credit of rupees 10 I have availed. I have availed the Senvet credit of rupees 10. So out of 110, I have taken the credit of rupees 10. So my cost will come to rupees 100. Okay, now my cost is 100. I have made many expenses. I have added my margin, which is called value addition. My value addition for marker is say rupees 40 per marker. It comes to 140. This is my output goods. Yeah, this is my output goods for rupees 140. On this, on the sale of this output good, excise duty will be charged. Say 10% is the rate of excise. It will come to 14. So total comes to 154. Okay, it is indirect tax. I will issue the invoice of rupees 154. I will collect 14 is excise and 140 for the value of goods from the customer. I have collected 14 is my excise. Now it is my liability to pay these rupees 14 to the government. Now what will I will pay? How I will pay? While making payment to the government, I am having Senvet credit of rupees 10, which I have already paid on purchase of inputs. So I will utilize the Senvet credit. I will utilize the Senvet credit of rupees 10 and remaining 4 I will pay to the government. I will say that rupees 10 I have already paid to the government through my supplier, rupees 10 on my purchases, and remaining 4 I will pay to the government. So total 14 I have paid to the government. Clear? Done? So this is how excise duty was being charged. How Senvet credit was being operated. Okay. Okay. So my point comes. My point comes. My question comes. The credit which we have got of rupees 10, a dialogue which is very famous from my side. 10 ka credit क्यों मिला? Why the credit of rupees 10 was allowed by the government to the SSC? 10 ka credit क्यों मिला? Sir, many of the people give the answer that on purchases we have made payment of rupees 10. We have paid tax of rupees 10 on purchase. That's why we will get the credit on sales. This is a general answer. We have paid tax on purchase, so we will take the credit. Okay, let's have a different example. Okay, then we will recover this point again. Friend, say you are the manufacturer of this pen. Okay, you are the manufacturer of this pen, and say pen is exempt from excise. Pen is exempt from excise, for example. So to manufacture this pen, again you might have purchased the inputs. Same example will take, same figures will take, so that we can compare what the situation is. For rupees 100 you have purchased the input. On that input is say plastic only, you have paid excise of rupees 10, because pen is exempt, not the inputs used in this pen. So you have purchased plastic, on that excise is being charged at 10%. Okay, total comes to 110. This is your purchase cost. Okay, now you will utilize that input for manufacture of this pen, which is exempt from GST. So government denied the ITC, government denied the SENVET credit, and they said, since your output goods are exempt, we won't allow you any tax credit. We said, yeah, okay. So your now cost is 110. You have purchased the input for 110, but no input tax credit is allowed. So your cost will be 110. Now again, you might have incurred many expenses. You have added your profit margin. All comes to rupees 40, and which is called value addition. Your sale price comes to rupees 150. Now it is your output goods for rupees 150, which is excise duty exempt. So your sale price comes to 150 only. This is your sale invoice. This is your sale invoice. Now you tell me, if government has denied you for the credit of rupees 10, have they done anything wrong with you? Is there any multiple taxation? Is there any cascading effect? Are you paying tax on your sales? No. It means absolutely correct. If government has not allowed you the input tax credit, there is nothing wrong in that. There is nothing wrong in that. Then what we were saying? Why we are getting the credit? My question was, in the earlier example, my question was why the credit of rupees 10 is allowed, and your answer was because we have paid tax on purchases. Here also you have paid tax on purchases. Here in this example, will you get the credit? Will you get the credit? No. Why? Because your sales are exempt. It means if you say that if anybody is paying tax on purchase, then he will get the credit. This is not the perfect answer. This is a good answer, but not perfect. And perfection is required. Good is not enough. Yes, Sarkar, because you should know each point, each and every word, each and every concept with practical application. So, friends, why the credit of rupees 10 is allowed? Not only due to the reason that you have paid the tax on purchases. Now, why credit of rupees 10 is allowed? Let's have a detailed example. Let's have a detailed example, friends. Why the credit of rupees 10 is allowed? This will be very well cleared by this example. We'll assume the scenario that my inputs are taxable, my outputs are also taxable, both are taxable. But if the government do not give the credit, then what will happen? Let's have discussion on this point. Then definitely we'll automatically we'll understand why the credit should be there. Okay, sir. Say government has denied the SENVET credit. CC means SENVET credit. Okay, you have purchased the inputs for rupees 100. You have paid the excise at 10%, comes to 110. This is your purchase invoice. Although your output goods are taxable, what would have been the scenario if the government has denied for any SENVET credit? Okay, now your cost is 110 because you have not got any credit. Now you have made the value addition. Value addition means your expenses, your margin, etc. 40 rupee, total comes to 150. Your output goods. Now on this output good, again you are paying the excise duty at 10%, comes to 15 rupee. 15 of 10% of 150 comes to 15. Total comes to 165. Friends, now I will prepare my invoice, I will make my invoice, I will give the invoice of rupees 165 to my customer, charging 15 rupee as tax from the customer. Now look at this point, my sale price is 165. Friends, we talk about total tax, 10 we have already paid to the government on my purchases, for which I have got no credit, and again 15 I am paying to the government. So how much total GST, total excise, sorry, how much total excise duty government has collected? 20. Think, what is the value of goods without tax? If any excise was not applicable on any of the goods, then value of goods would have been only rupees 140. 100 is the input cost, 40 is your value addition, total will 140 only. So rate of tax on marker, rate of tax on goods which I am saying selling to the person, to the customer, is only 10%. 10% of what? Value. And what is the value without tax? It is 140, and 140 multiplied by 10% comes to 14 only, but they are charging rupees 25. Is it correct? Now we will do the operation in detail. See why this 25 is incorrect. Why this 25 is not correct. Look at here. 25 is the total GST, total excise. How this 25 came? How this 25 came? 10 plus 15. How this 10 came? 10% of 100. 100 is your input. Okay. How this 15 came? 10% of 150, which is your output. Now how this 150 came? 100. We are breaking down the figure of rupees 150. How it came? 150 plus 10 plus 40. What is 100? Inputs. What is 10? Excise duty paid on inputs. What is 40? Value addition. Okay. Okay. So this is the breakup of rupees 150. Now we have paid tax on 150, 10%. It means we have paid 10% on input also here, 10% of this also, 10% of this also. It will be 10, 1, it will be 4, total comes to 15. Okay. So now we will analyze where situations are wrong. Okay. Now inputs worth rupees 100. Mr. X had manufactured the input, rate of tax being 10% comes to rupees 10. Okay, no problem. On the very next step, when we come, on the very next step, 150 comprises of this 100 also. Oh ho, what is happening? On this 100, we have already paid the tax, and again on this 100, we are paying 10. This is wrong, na? This is wrong. नहीं चलेगा, नहीं चलेगा. Friends, here, look at this. What government is doing? On inputs, we have already paid the tax, and again on this rupees 100, they are charging tax. They are charging tax again on this 100. Double taxation. If I increase, I sell these goods to you, and you are again selling to somebody else, and again on that price, again tax will be charged. I have taken only these two steps, one here and one here. So double taxation. One more step will be added, then triple taxation, 4-time taxation, 5-time taxation. That's why it is called multiple taxation on the same amount of rupees 100. On same amount of rupees 100, government is charging tax multiple times. This is what is called multiple taxation. This is called multiple taxation. Double taxation is a good word, but not the perfect word, because steps of manufacturing or supply chain may be multiple, so that's why it is called multiple taxation. Sir, on rupees 100 we have already paid the tax and they are charging tax on 100 again, that's what is called multiple taxation. Nahi chalega. Next step, what is this? Excise duty, and they are charging excise duty on excise duty. You need tax on value or you need the tax on tax? Tax on tax is called cascading effect. Again we have caught the government that here also you are wrong. Nahi chalega, nahi chalega. This is called cascading effect, which you might have heard many a time. Sir, this is called cascading effect of taxation. Tax on tax is called cascading effect. We came to the next point, value addition. On value addition, this is the part of value. We need to pay the tax. Okay, done. This is good. If you are charging tax on value addition, accepted. But you are charging on tax on rupees 100 again? No. On rupees 10, which is excise duty, again? No. Not acceptable. Clear? So, on the very next step, if we conclude rupees 100 is rupees 10, acceptable. But on the very next step, rupees 15, not acceptable. But on the very next step, if you pay only rupees 4, then done. This is correct. So ultimately what the taxation should be on the next step? Only on value addition. Look at here. Fairly, only tax should be charged only on value addition on the next step. Sir, so tax on value addition is called value added tax. So every stage, every cycle, supply chain, each cycle, each chain should charge tax not on the entire price but on the value addition. That's what is called taxation addition. Value addition per tax is called value added tax, and since excise was the tax of central government, that's why it is called central value added tax. And sir, government has allowed input tax credit of tax paid on purchases, so that if you pay tax on your sales entire price, you are paying tax on entire sale price, then you should get the input tax credit of tax paid on purchases. Otherwise there will be multiple taxation, otherwise there will be cascading effect. So to avoid the multiple taxation and cascading effect, government has allowed the input tax credit of tax paid on purchases. So ultimately they will charge tax only on value addition. This is the conclusion. So we are coming again on this slide on the conclusion part ki why the credit of rupees 10 is allowed. Sarkar, 10 ka credit क्यों मिला? Why the credit of rupees 10 is allowed? So if we conclude, then what will say? Because tax is being charged on rupees 140. The tax on sales is being charged on entire rupees 140. Please listen to this concept very carefully, because this will lead you to GST. Yes, don't think we are reading, we are learning excise. No, we are learning a concept which will be used in GST also. Same concept, everything will be same. Please understand. Sarkar, why the credit of rupees 10 is allowed? Because government is charging tax on rupees 140, which is rupees 1, which is the sale price, and that rupees sale price, that rupees 140 includes 100. That 140 includes 100 on which we have already paid the tax. And again on entire rupees 140 they are charging the tax. So there will be multiple taxation, there will be cascading effect. So to avoid the multiple tax and cascading effect, they have allowed the input tax credit of rupees 10. So again I am revising the point. 10 ka credit क्यों मिला? And after revision by me, you will have to revise, you will have to speak. मैं आपसे पूछने वाला हूँ, I will ask from you कि why the credit of rupees 10 is allowed. Sir, why the credit of rupees 10 is allowed? Because tax is being charged on entire rupees 140. which includes 100 on which we have already paid the tax, and again on rupees 140 tax is being charged including that rupees 100. So to avoid the multiple tax and cascading effect, credit of rupees 10 is allowed. Yes, Sarkar. Now it's your turn to speak and let me know why the credit of rupees 10 is allowed. Yes, sir. I need to hear from you. Yes, this camera is, this video class which you are, which you have subscribed as a software that I will, I will listen your voice. I need answer from you guys. Yes, Sarkar. Tell me why the credit of rupees 10 is allowed, because yes, tax is being charged on entire rupees 100 sale price, which includes 100. Sorry, tax is being charged on entire 140 rupees, which is the sale price, which includes 100 on which we have already paid the tax, and again tax is being charged on 140 including 100. So there will be multiple taxation, there will be cascading effect. So to avoid the multiple tax and cascading effect, rate of rupees 10 is out. One more time, last time. Close your eyes. Now we will feel why the credit allowed. This is the mantra to clear the GST. This is the mantra to understand all the concept of GST. Close your eyes and feel the concept why the credit of rupees 10 is allowed, because tax is being charged on entire rupees 140. Close your eyes, feel it, दिल में उतारो इसको. Sir, why the credit of rupees 10 is allowed? Because tax is being charged on entire rupees 140, which includes 100 on which we have already paid the tax, and again tax is being charged on entire 140 including 100. So to avoid the multiple tax and cascading effect, rate of rupees 10 is allowed. Bharat Mata ki jai. माहौल. सरकार, ओपन योर आइज, धीरे से, प्यार से, माहौल होना चाहिए. Yes, so credit of rupees 10 is allowed. So how it is allowed, why it is allowed, I hope you got the entire point. Okay, sir. So wherever there is a chance of multiple taxation cascading effect, all those areas are covered by government, and yes, they have allowed the input tax credit of rupees 10. Now only figures will change, concept will remain same throughout the India. Okay, moving ahead, Sarkar, we have learned the concept of input tax credit. Now we are moving ahead. Say you are a manufacturer, you have taken the credit of excise, but now on sale of goods, VAT, sales tax is also charged. Now I'll discuss how the VAT and SENVAT operates. Friends, VAT and SENVAT. VAT and SENVAT, the fundamental of both the laws are absolutely same. Look at here. Sir, now I am taking together practically how it operates. SENVAT plus VAT, because if a manufacturer manufactures some goods and then he sell it, then excise will also be charged and VAT will also be charged. So how it will operate, let's discuss over this point. Sir, say I am a manufacturer of marker. While I am manufacturing the marker, I will purchase the inputs. Whatever input I am purchasing, I am getting it for rupees 100, for example. On that, the supplier, who is the manufacturer, is charging excise at 10%, comes to rupees 10, total comes to 110. On sale of this good, again on sale of these goods, again VAT is charged, because I am selling the goods. VAT, sales tax is charged on sale of goods. Say 4% is the rate of VAT, and VAT was charged on entire 110, which comes to 4.40. Total sale price is 114.40. This is my sale price. Okay, this is my sale price. 114.4 whenever supplier, the supplier of the pen of the plastic inputs will supply these goods, this will be the invoice, supply invoice. I have purchased it. Okay, I will use it in use these manufacture of my output goods marker, which is also taxable, on which excise duty will be charged, and on sale weight will also be charged. Since on my sale weight will also be charged, so I will be getting the input tax credit of weight, and on my manufacturing of these goods excise will be charged, so I will also get the weight credit of excise paid. Okay, so I have taken weight credit. I have availed weight credit of rupees 10 and weight credit of rupees 4.40 which I have paid on purchasing. So out of 114.40 I have got the credit of 14.40 through weight and weight. So my cost will be only rupees 100. Okay, I have made the value addition. Same figure, say rupees 40. Total comes to 140. Now 140 is my sale price. 140 is my sale price. Whenever I will sell these goods for rupees 140, first of all excise will be charged 10%, say rupees 14, total 154, and again on sale of these goods weight will be charged, say 4%, comes to 6.16, total is 160.16. Okay, sir, this is my sale invoice 160.16. I will collect 14 as excise from the customer, 6.16 is weight from my customer, and 140 is towards value of goods. Now, while making payment to the government for excise, rupees 14 I will pay to the government, but I have the weight credit of rupees 10. I will utilize the weight credit of rupees 10, and remaining 4 I will pay to the government. And for paying weight is the revenue of state government. While paying weight, I will utilize the weight credit of rupees 4.4, and remaining 1.76 I will make payment to the government. Clear? So Sarkar, first question which comes to my mind is that in any case, if I am having excess weight credit, if I am having, for example, having excess weight credit, can I utilize the VAT credit for payment of excise duty? Here, can I utilize the VAT credit for paying excise liability? Can I? No. Why no? Because VAT is being paid to the state government. It is the revenue of state government. But excise is paid to the central government, and you have paid the tax to state government and claiming credit from central government. Will they allow? No. Same case, vice versa. Means if can I utilize the weight credit for paying the liability of VAT? No, because I have paid tax to the central government. Then central government will give the input tax credit. State government will not give the input tax credit. Clear? So point is that weight credit will be utilized for making payment of liability of central government, taxes of central government, and VAT credit will be utilized for paying liability of VAT only, not for any other central government tax. Clear? Done. So my question is, the question which comes to my mind is, yes, why the credit of rupees 10 is allowed? Yes sir, tell me fast. Because tax is being charged on rupees 140, which includes rupees 100 on which we have already paid the tax, and again on entire rupees 140 including 100 tax is being charged. So to avoid the multiple tax and cascading effect, credit of rupees 10 is allowed. Okay, actually is not. The question which is there in my mind is that why the credit of rupees 4.4 is allowed? Yes, I need answer from you. I need answer from you. Why the credit of rupees 4.4 is allowed? Because tax is being charged on entire rupees 154, which includes rupees 110, on which we have already paid the VAT. and again on 154 including 110 weight is being charged. So to avoid the multiple tax and cascading effect, credit of rupees 4.4 is allowed. Yes, correct, absolutely correct. It means the fundamental of Senvit credit is absolutely same of weight credit. The fundamental of weight as well as Senvit are absolutely same. Friends, only figures have changed. And now, in the current scenario of GST, these are CGST and SGST. But leave the GST as of now. We are discussing these points, so let's focus on these points. Okay, so you have understood the concept of input tax credit. I hope absolutely perfectly you have got the point ki why credit is allowed. Okay, one more point we need to discuss. You tell me, is it essential? Is it essential that on every sale weight will be charged and on every sale excise will be charged? Is it essential? No. There may be some cases where on sales excise is exempt but weight is applicable, or vice versa. On sales excise is applicable, weight is exempt, but on purchase you have paid the excise as well as weight. Say on plastic, excise as well as weight has been paid by you guys, but on sale of marker, sale of output goods, weight is there or excise is not there. And in other case, excise is there but weight is not there. Then in such case, you tell me, if on my sale, for example, weight is not applicable but excise is applicable, then yes, I will get the input tax credit of this excise 10 rupee. But will I get the credit of 4.4? On my sales, weight is exempt, weight is not applicable. Will I get the credit of input weight which I have paid on purchases? No. Yes or not? Same is the case, vice versa. In my example, if on my sales weight is applicable but excise duty is exempt, then I will get the input tax credit of weight but not the excise. If both are not applicable, on my sales neither excise nor weight is payable, then I will not get any input tax credit of excise as well as weight. So it means purchase per tax पे किया है. If you have paid the tax on purchase, it does not mean कि confirmly you will get the credit. On sales, if tax is being charged, on sales if excise is being charged, then you will get the credit of excise Senvit credit. If you, on your sales weight is being charged, then only you will get the credit of tax weight paid on purchase of your inputs. Yes or no? Done. Clear? Paka? Okay. So coming to the next step, I am coming to the next point. Sir, step by step we are running. We are moving step by step. My next point is that, sir, there are three sectors. There are three sectors. Look, still we are in pre-GST regime. We will come in GST regime after some time. Today we are living the life which was there before 2017, 1st of July 2017. Before 1st July 17, what was there? We are living in that era. Okay, sir. Now point is that okay, sir. Now point is that बड़ा दिख रहा हूं मैं, अच्छा दिख रहा हूं. Okay, listen. Now point is that there are three sectors: manufacturer, service supplier, and trading sector. What manufacturer do? Manufactures the goods and then sell it. What supplier, what trader do? Trading. He purchases the goods and sell the same good. What service supplier do? Provide the services, supply the services. Okay. On manufacturer, excise was charged on and on sale of his goods, weight was also charged. For trader, he is just buying the goods and selling the same goods. Only weight was charged because he is not manufacturing any goods. Third, service supplier. only service tax was being charged. Okay, service tax was the revenue of central government, excise was the revenue of central government, and VAT is the revenue of state government. Okay, so now think, now we are coming to what was the lacuna earlier, but yes, we need to understand the entire scenario, then framing the GST law will be very easy for we all guys. Okay, now what will happen? Say I am a manufacturer, before GST. On my sales, excise was also charged and VAT was also charged. On my purchase, I have purchased many inputs, many capital goods, many services. I have paid excise on inputs, capital goods, VAT on inputs, capital goods. I have paid service tax on my input services. For example, consultancy services I have taken, job work services I have taken, marketing services, advertisement services, XYZ, many services. I have paid service tax on my purchase of services, excise and VAT on my purchase of input and capital goods. So I will be getting input tax credit of what? Sir, on my sales, excise is also charged and VAT was also charged. So, service tax was also the revenue of central government, and excise was also the revenue of central government. So, Senvet credit of both these taxes, whether it's service tax or central excise, you will get the Senvet credit of both these taxes because these were the revenue of central government only. You have paid these taxes to central government only, so central government will give the Senvet credit of these taxes paid to them. Okay, so we will get the input tax credit, Senvet credit of excise as well as service tax, because for a manufacturer, excise was applicable on his sales. And since VAT is also applicable on his sales, so VAT is also charged. VAT is also charged. Okay. So he will also get the input tax credit of VAT paid on his purchases. Okay, sir. Sarkar. So for a manufacturer, excise was also applicable, VAT was also applicable. So he will be getting the credit of VAT, excise as well as service tax. Excise in service tax is Senvet credit and VAT is input VAT credit. Okay, so no problem to manufacturer, no major problem to manufacturer pre GST regime. Now we are coming to traders. Now what the trader is doing? Just purchasing the goods and selling the same goods. On his sales, he will be liable to pay only VAT. So see, we are just thinking about these industries on a macro level. Think, on a trader only VAT was charged, only VAT is applicable on sale of goods. On his sales, neither excise nor service tax was charged. So on his sales only VAT is charged. So whatever he is purchasing for his business, he will get the input tax credit of only VAT. Say for example, you are a trader of AC, air conditioner. You have a showroom of air conditioner. You are buying the air conditioner directly from the manufacturer. You have paid excise as well as VAT on your purchase. But while selling those goods, you will be liable only for VAT because you are just trading the goods. You are just selling the goods. You are not manufacturing. So on purchase of that good, you have also paid the excise, but you will not be eligible for input tax credit, Senvet credit of excise paid. You might have taken the services, marketing services, advertisement services for your showroom, but you have paid the service tax, but on your sales only VAT liability is there, so you will not be able to get the Senvet credit of service tax paid on your input services because on your sales only VAT was charged. So for a trader, whatever excise, whatever service tax he is paying on his purchases, it's a cost for that assessee. His cost will increase by that amount because he will not be able to get the input tax credit of excise or Senvet or service tax. That was a loss for the trader. So always what the trading industry used to do, whenever they get the services from service supplier, they know very well that whatever service tax they will pay on purchase, it will be their sunk cost because they can't get the credit. So they used to ask the service supplier to reduce the invoice amount and get the cash. Means number two amount will go to them. Number two amount will go to them without invoice, and they will raise the invoice of very less amount because service tax whatever will be charged on the invoice amount. If 1 lakh rupee invoice is there, so what they will ask the supplier, he issue the invoice of only rupees 20,000. You charge service tax on 20,000. I will pay this amount on record, and remaining 80,000 I will pay in cash without any of the record. So again, government was losing the revenue, and that assessee was not getting any tax credit. So that was a loss for the assessee. So he used to he always intend ki tax would be saved on purchase. This was the intent. Third case, it means whatever trader is paying excise and service tax on his purchase, it was lost to the assessee. Third case, for a service supplier. Service tax was charged on his services, but VAT is not applicable on services. So service supplier will get the input tax credit of excise paid. Service supplier will get the input tax credit of service tax paid on purchases, but he will not get the credit of VAT paid on his purchases. Say you are a consultant. You are also doing the articleship in any of the firm. Sir, you might have seen many equipments, laptop, tube lights, pen, this camera, LCD, LED, many things, computers, pen for used for office, everything which you see in the office before GST regime, on purchase of those goods, he is paid the VAT, and no input tax credit of VAT paid on purchases was allowed to the service supplier because on his sales only service tax was charged. So again, that was a huge loss for the service supplier. He is paying tax VAT on his purchases but not getting any input of that. It was added to his cost, but yes, he was allowed the input tax credit of service tax. Whatever service supplier is purchasing the input services for his business, he will get the input tax credit, but whatever goods he is purchasing on which he is paying VAT, no credit is allowed. But yes, if he has paid any excise on purchases, input tax credit of excise, SENVAT credit will be allowed to the service supplier. Okay. Now practically becomes, if you think about practical life of the service supplier, for your office, if you need the AC, camera, laptop, computers, on purchase invoice, if excise is mentioned, you will be eligible to take the input tax credit, SENVAT credit of excise, service supplier. If I am a service supplier, yes, we will be eligible to take the SENVAT credit of excise paid on purchases of all these goods, but not of VAT. Now you tell me, who can raise the invoice of excise? Who can charge the excise on invoice? Manufacturer. Who can charge the excise on invoice? Manufacturer. Now, if I want to get the input tax credit, SENVAT credit of excise, then I should have the purchase invoice of manufacturer. So I will be required to purchase all those goods from the manufacturer. I need 2 laptops for my office, so I need to buy those 2 laptops from the manufacturer of the laptop. Then only he will issue the invoice of excise and VAT, and I will be eligible to take the input tax credit of excise. Obviously not of VAT, but at least I can get the credit of excise. But you tell me, to purchase 2 laptop, I will go to manufacturer. Say manufacturer of this laptop is at Gurgaon. We are sitting at Mumbai or Tamil Nadu. Will we go to the Gurgaon, Delhi, to buy these 2 laptops? That manufacturer, will he supply me 2 laptops? He is a big manufacturer. Will he sell to the retail customer? First of all, will I move there? Will I go there to the Gurgaon all together to buy 2 laptops? Never. And if I go there, then also will he sell to me? I told him, say I went there to the manufacturer factory at Gurgaon. I told him I need 2 laptops. He told to his staff, tell him 2 truck of laptop. I said, no Baba, no Baba, only 2 laptops. Well, move ahead. Bhai Sahab, we will not sell only 2 laptops. We are the manufacturer. If you need bulk buy, then we can supply you. We can't go in retail. So they will not sell to me. So what option is left with me? I will have to buy these 2 laptops from a retail outlet, a showroom which is nearby to my office. Practically, I will do that only here. So what used to happen? Although government had allowed the Senvet credit of excise paid by the service supplier, but practically you think, was I getting credit of excise? No, because I was not getting the invoice of manufacturer, because I will purchase all the goods required for my office, obviously from a trader having showroom nearby to my area. So practically those showrooms will charge VAT on their sale invoice, not excise on their sale invoice. And for a service supplier, what is required? They get the credit of excise, not the VAT. What is mentioned in invoice? VAT. What I want? Excise. What I get? VAT. The thing which I want is not there. The thing which is there that I don't want. That is what the life is. Don't link it with the life. This was pre-GST regime. And even this problem was there with the manufacturer. Even I am the manufacturer, I am eligible to get the input tax credit of excise, but I was not able to buy all the goods used for my factory from the manufacturer directly. So again, there was a huge loss of Senvet credit to a supplier. And sir, this was the lacuna in the previous laws. Input tax credit chain was not smooth. There was a breakage of input tax credit chain at various stages in the earlier regime. That's the reason there was a need of a law which can smooth the input tax credit chain. Country demands one law, one nation, one market. Sarkar, government thought for one nation, one tax, one market. Government thought. Government put their efforts. And yes, they need to see a smooth input tax credit chain throughout the country. So there was a need of a system which could eradicate all these ill effects, due to which unnecessary costing was increased because non-availability of input tax credit was there. So to avoid all these things, inflationary rate come hoga, it will get reduced. Why? Because credit will be allowed on each purchase. Because whether if single tax is made, which is named, the dream was the goods and services tax. If the supplier, whether he is manufacturer or he is a trader or he is a service supplier, he will supply, he will charge G from purchases. Whether he buys the goods from the manufacturer, trader or service supplier, he will get the invoice of GST. On purchase there is GST, on sales there is GST, 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 GST. Yes, there will be smooth chain of input tax credit. On my purchase, GST will be paid. On my sales, GST will be charged. So there was a requirement of a system which could smoothen the input tax credit of GST. Sarkar, so government tried to implement the GST. This is not the effort only of this current government. Yes, many efforts were made by previous government also, Congress government also. But yeah, hard work, only hard work can give you the success, which was lacking that government. Okay, these are not the political points, but yes, ultimately in 2014 When Modi government came, they made the team of people who could dedicatedly work on this field ki how to sort out all these issues and bring the most demanded, most challenging law in the country, GST. The most, you know, big problem in implementation of GST was VAT laws, because SENVET credit के लिए for excise and service tax, while excise and service tax was there, SENVET credit was common for both these. So anyways, this was the revenue of central government, and throughout the country there was a single law. And SENVET credit helped the service tax and excise to merge with each other. Nothing major issue was there. But the major issue was VAT law, because in every state different provisions were there, different rate of tax were there. Every state had made the provisions, made the laws according to their circumstances and according to their situations, demands. Because in India, we know very well that if we change the state, language changes. Even God changes from state to state. Sir, food changes, cloth changes, dresses change. So every state government had implemented the VAT laws. They drafted the VAT laws according to their circumstances and social requirements. So that was the big problem with the GST, because if you want to implement the GST, then there will be one tax throughout the nation. Then how to merge the system of all the state government in a single law, which is called GST. It was a big challenge with the government, but yes, government put their 100% efforts. Yes, got the result in 2017, and they implemented the GST from 1st of July 2017. Bold step by the Modi, very bold step. Yes, sir. But point comes, how it will be. For this, मिलते हैं ब्रेक के बाद. So we'll continue the next point कि how the GST came. Just now we have discussed why the GST came. We have read why the GST came, what was the lacuna in the earlier law. Now we will read in the continuation after the break, see how the GST came, and then we will read what the GST is. Okay, so we will discuss all the concepts and you will understand the broad idea of GST, and then technically we will start the each and every section which are relevant. Okay, first of all we need to understand all the concepts. Okay, why the GST is required, how the GST was required. These are the overviews of the GST law. Here you need to have a clear picture of all these things, then only you will be able to understand clearly what the GST. Yes, and we'll discuss each and every point. So till now we have read why GST, what was the lacuna in the previous law, and yes, entire concept of ITC we have read. This will be the same concept we will be starting GST. Yes, fundamentally is absolutely same, but yes, we'll discuss afterward what the GST is. Okay, so till now I hope you got the point. We have read what government is, how laws are made, what amendments till which date amendments are applicable for our exams, and how indirect tax works. Clear? Sure? Okay. So one more thing I need to tell you, whatever notes I am writing here, if you want to write in your notebook, then you can have a click of this slide. After every lecture I will give you time to have a click, take a picture from your mobile of these slides of the matter which I am writing here, and you can jot down in your work notebook after the lecture, so that our time of discussion here in the lecture do not get wasted. Okay, so your time is more precious, very important time. Okay, and yes, you will be getting 6 books, 3 of main book, conceptual book, 2 questionnaire book with multiple choice questions including case study based MCQs, etc. And in questionnaire, in main book plus questionnaire, we have covered all the questions of the RTP revision test paper issued by the ICI, mock test paper of the ICI, additional questions for practice by ICI, ICI material questions, plus we have covered many, we have drafted many questions for practice for you guys. Multiple choice questions, case study based MCQs, everything is there in the questionnaire plus main book. Plus one more book which is summary book, which will be helpful to you guys to revise each and every chapter after completion of each chapter. Okay, so have a click of these slides. Be ready with your mobile. You can have a click of these slides because this will be useful for your revision. Yes, friends. Here we begin with English batch, May 21, November 21. Bhagwan. Yes, have a click of this slide. Oh, sorry. Yeah, have a click of this slide. Every day we'll use this practice. After the lecture, you will get to click the pictures of the slides which will be required for you to copy in your notebook. I hope you got the entire point. Okay, this is the second slide. Okay, third one. Then next, identity 100 marks. Okay, very important slide. This is very important slide. One moment. One moment. Yes, click it. Very important to understand the concept of cascading effect, multiple taxation, and why the input tax credit came into picture. Exact picture verified by this slide. Hey, VAT and SENVAT, how these operate together. This is what the concept of CGST and SGST. We will be discussing after some time. Coming sessions. Okay, done. So this was the concept which we read till now. मिलते हैं break के बाद. Thank you so much. See you soon. Thank you.